right, so as you can see, there is quite a lack of wiring on the passenger side of the vehicle, and I'm going to tell you why. So basically, I found out we don't need the passenger side harness for this car. Now, don't just start hacking up your harness and whatnot if this is what you're trying to do. You need to sit down and go through, do your homework, look at wiring diagrams, figure out what it is exactly you're trying to go for with whatever setup you have. So with this car, it was originally an 85 2.3 liter carbureted 4-cylinder with an automatic. Now what that means is it did come equipped with the ECU, but that was only to monitor the factory smog equipment that was on the vehicle. Now, obviously, none of that stuff's left. Now we have a fire-breathing 5-liter, and none of the smog equipment is used, and I doubt the ECU even works anymore. It's just kind of like one of those things that's just been in the loop just because it was already there. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of excess cut wires here. Now, what happened was when I first got the car and did the initial engine swap, anything that wasn't detrimental to the car running got snipped. And I'm kind of glad that I wasn't a total doofus about it and actually kind of did go through certain things and look at certain things, because it could have ended really bad. The car could have just not ran and worked at all because I hacked up the wiring harness. But what ended up happening is all I did was get rid of the evap and smog equipment that I did not need anymore. So we have the ECU here. We have the relay that actually turns the ECU on, the holding bracket and whatnot, extra wiring. This is what's left of the passenger harness after I had went through it and got rid of all the extra wiring and whatnot. So as you can see here, this is the connector where it would be in the kick panel for the ECU. You can see all the wires I cut just because I was kind of like trying to track everything and, you know, keep track of what I was cutting and getting rid of and leaving what I didn't. So we have our ground strap here. Now this is the pigtail for the relay, which powers the ECU. So that's kind of the smarter thing that Ford did with these, is they actually had this running off a relay to run instead of just being direct power like the lights and other stuff is on the car. So that was kind of a cool little smart thing. And then here's the other half of the harness. You can see we have it snipped here and snipped here because I wanted the grommet off of it. But snip this harness here, and as you can see, it gets power off the starter solenoid. It's like a constant power for it. Now, I'm not sure what that entails. If that's just it's like a memory for your ECU or something. I'm not really sure what all that entails. But it does have a connector over here that hooks up to the driver's side of the vehicle. And then it also has another connector that I snipped off that hooks up to that driver's side as well. There's 3 connectors here. This one looks more like a DuraSpark plug, so I'm not really sure what to do about that, but it's not being used, so I'll probably get rid of it. Wiring, or this is the wiper connector, and then this is the engine harness connector. And one of these pins has the oil pressure in it. That's why I saved that connector, because I need to figure out a way to either depin this and just have the oil pressure wire hooked up so I can, retain my oil pressure gauge, or, I'll figure that out. I'll figure out a way to clean that up. But basically, the other thing too was this was originally an automatic car. So I kind of somewhat bypassed the neutral safety switch wiring in the car. Now it's not totally bypassed. It is the key, like the ignition and everything, is tapped into the neutral safety switch wiring. So it does work off the key. I just don't have to have the clutch pressed in to start the car because everything's kind of bypassed. And what that means is I have this wire coming from the steering column to the starter solenoid to crank everything over and make it work. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this wire is for. I've seen a lot of mixed things about it. Here's the other end of it. Some people say this is your rear defrost power. Some people say this is your main power for the ignition switch to actually start the car. Either way, it does make sense because, 80s cars did have a lot of big, bulky wiring and whatnot. And, more important things got bigger wires. That's what it seems like. So either way, I hooked up a jump box to the car here. Excuse me. And I did fire the car up. And everything still works as it should, which is awesome. And basically means I do not need that harness at all. But I do still need to get the oil pressure gauge working. And I kind of did a little jumper and got it working. So I know that the oil pressure gauge works off of that harness, not the engine harness, which is awesome. So I can get a replacement grommet that hasn't been cut to fill that big hole for the harness where it used to be. And then I need to figure out a way to plug this grommet where the yellow wire had went through on the firewall. So just a lot of sorting and whatnot. And then I will, once we get the motor and trans out and everything and have more access to stuff, I'll be going through the whole driver's side harness and kind of slimming that down and tucking it away and whatnot just to make it look all clean. But yeah, so that's kind of the latest of what's going on. All right, so we're going to install the other side of these lower windshield trim molding clips. Now, as you can see here, I got these installed. They're sitting pretty okay. But these new clips can be tricky to install, and I can't really find a whole lot of info about them. So I'm going to show you what I found to get these installed. You do have to do a little bit of modifying. So as you can see here, this is the kit I got off of National Parts Depot. Here's your new clips. As you can see here, it also comes with these rivets. I'm not sure what that's about, but we don't need them, so those will go in the scrap bin. But here they are. And basically what I found is, I don't know if it's just the tooling they're made with is out of date or just warped or deformed or whatever the case may be, but I can't get the clips to slide down far enough to lock onto the little tabs that you see here. So we had to do a little bit of modifying to get these to lock in. Now, this can be a little tricky if you're doing this with, say, the original windshield or even a new windshield in the car, because the urethane that's applied, at least nowadays, can get onto those little studs that you need to lock the clips down. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that side. So here we have the two clips side by side. So this is how I modified this one that I'll show you here. So you can see this tab sticks up. And this tab I actually folded inwards, and then I actually grounded a little bit of material off the top. Not a whole lot, just a tiny bit. Now the purpose of this is so once you slide the clip on, that tab will actually lock underneath the stud and prevent the clip from rising and lifting up. Because if you do that, your windshield trims start coming loose, and you don't want that. So to avoid that problem, this is what I figured out to do. Now, if you have to remove these clips down the road, obviously you're gonna have to bend that tab and bust it away, and you'll destroy the clip and you have to get new ones. But this is a good little preventative thing that I found to keep your clips and trim on the vehicle and not on the side of the road. So without further ado, I'll show you how to install these now. So again, like I was saying, this can be a little tricky, especially with the urethane, but it doesn't look like we're gonna have to cut any of it away on this side. It looks like we have a decently sized channel that we can work with for these molding clips. So it's gonna be a little hard to film, but I'm gonna try my best to figure something out here. All right, so we got the tripod set up here to install. Slide the clip over that, push it forward until it lines up with the back slot here. You can see it's pushed down and started onto this. So now what you have to do is basically take a flathead and start pushing it down. And as you can see, it actually went down far enough and locked under that, which is great. Now I'm just gonna kind of apply some pressure onto that tab to make sure it's bent inwards. Let me zoom in here, maybe you can see it. But that, let me get a little pick here. This tab is now under this part here on the body of the car. So even if this clip jiggles around, it's not gonna lift off and come off of that peg. So that trim piece is now locked in until I decide that it no longer needs to be there. But with that being said, you can see how easy it is to install these. Now this side actually went right together. I don't think I needed to modify this side as much. I don't know what the issue was with the driver's side, but this side just seemed to go right together. So we're gonna try again with the other one and see if we can get just as lucky. All right, so now we're gonna try the next one on the passenger side. And I'm still gonna bend this tab in just a little bit, just to get that locking action I'm hoping for. So as you can see here, the tab is now bent inwards. And we're gonna see if we can get lucky a second time. So again, you do gotta be careful with these because they kind of are easy to break. It's still just thin metal, not really made to be jostled around and whatnot. So once you feel it start on the peg, which this one has, fantastic, you're gonna take your flathead and ever so gently pop her down in place. That's beautiful. I was not expecting it to be that easy. So again, I'm gonna grab the pick here to get in here a little better. Again, we're just gonna push that metal tab inward to confirm that it is locked, and even if this clip moves, it will not lift off of that peg. So, as you can see, it's not the worst task to install these clips. It can be a little troublesome sometimes, but now we have all our clips in. We have all these surrounding clips on the windshield, as well as the lower moldings. So these are reproduction clips. They fit okay-ish. You might have to modify them, you might not have to. These are original clips because the new clips I ordered just did not fit for whatever reason. That's okay, not a big deal. It happens with reproduction parts. Let me get that leg out of the way. But with that being said, we're good. Everything works. So now we're gonna install the belt weather stripping that goes across the firewall here, and we'll see how that goes. Also, just to give you guys a little quick snippet here, this is the part number for the clip kit. So you can see it's a M-42309-1AK. And it seems to be there's multiple like numbers, so you can do with that what you will. But these are the clips you will need for those lower windshield moldings. So now we can get onto that belt weather strip I was talking about. All right, so here's the weather strip piece I was talking about that goes from the firewall to seal against the hood. Now, again, this isn't really super important. It's just kind of like having this complete and, you know, not necessarily all original equipment, but just, you know, complete and nice looking. If I'm going through the effort of doing all these little things to make it look nice, I might as well do this as well. So with that being said, it should be a relatively quick and easy install. I'll show you the part number for that here. That is a D9ZZ-16740. So it's like a rubber / felt material. And I'll set the tripod up and we'll get this installed. All right, so try our best to install this without scratching anything. Tried to kind of straighten it out as best as I could, because I think there's like a little metal strip of, or yeah, literally a metal strip in here. So again, we're just gonna try our best to carefully do this and not mess anything up. So we're gonna kind of tilt it in at an angle as to not chip our firewall. Chipped it. Oh, whatever. Okay. So kind of get it started in here. Come around to the other side and get it installed. Here. So again, just trying to be gentle here. Okay. Why are you like this? Okay. You just push down and there she goes. Like magic, it's installed. And as you can see, the seal kind of, as you can see, the seal kind of just folds forward and locks in like so. Okay. These clips just don't want to cooperate. Again, trying my best not to scratch this up, but it is what it is. But it's a simple little thing. And again, it just adds to that completeness factor. So once we get the new hood hinge cups and hood hinges installed, basically the firewall area will be complete for now. So again, hold on, let me get this unhooked here. Not like a super important thing, but it looks nice. Definitely adds to the completeness factor. So yeah, not bad. Fits nice. Again, these are NPD parts I was using in this video. I'm not sponsored by anybody or anything like that. It's just the components I chose to use. So yeah, hopefully this lasts for a long time. Doesn't end up like the original did and dry rotted and flaking and whatnot. But yeah, pretty neat. So let's move on to the next thing. All right, so off camera, I've been kind of working on the hatch a little bit just to kind of keep things moving and, you know, keep on with the progress. So what we did on this was we took everything apart, pulled all the hardware, the struts, the latch, everything. Everything is off the hatch besides the wiring, which will be repaired because younger me just didn't care, I guess. But that's okay. I'll clean it up, make it look new. It'll look nice. But yeah, I noticed that besides the rust developing on the bottom of the hatch, all the factory seam sealer that Ford puts on along this like pinch weld area, I guess you could call it, was like cracking and just brittle and breaking apart. So I went around the whole hatch with a chisel and a hammer and basically just broke all that stuff away, wire wheeled it, sanded it all down, and then we went over the whole thing with a coat of the same undercoating that I used to do the firewall, which is this stuff here, the Rust-Oleum Reform and Seal. Good stuff. I'm not really concerned about what this area looks like. Black is black. It's fine. It's not really like an important thing for how this looks on the car because you're not really going to see it. And this is kind of like a function over form thing to me. So I'm not concerned about the overall quality and look of this area, just that it's rust-free and clean. So again, busted all the seam seal out of it. And what we'll be doing now is using that Dynatron gray stuff that I've gotten in the past. And we'll go over the whole thing now that it's been undercoated and seal it back up. And then once that's dry, tomorrow or something, I'll probably go over it with another coat just to really encapsulate everything and hide all the seam sealer and make it look nice and neat and basically factory. So once that's done, I'll order like the hatch hinges and whatnot and actually get it mounted back on the car in preparation for paint. So another thing I did too was I was actually able to drill out the broken bolt that was stuck in the hatch that had been there for, I don't know, about 5 years now. This is not the original hatch to this car. The original hatch that was on it when I first got the car leaked really bad from the back window, and I used the hatch from my other Mustang I had at the time to put onto this because they were the same color and everything, so you really couldn't tell. And it didn't leak or anything, but the hatch was pretty rusty. And then I got lucky enough to find this at a junkyard, you know, about a couple months after that, and it was in much better shape than mine. So I went and got it and put it on the car, and then I made it all work and wired it all up and whatnot. As you can see, it's kind of janky, but we'll fix that and address all that. So I'm going to set this up on a time lapse, and we'll go around, seam seal the whole thing, and I'll get back to you when it's done. Alrighty, so as you can see here, we got the seam sealing done, and went around, kind of smoothed it all out, packed it into that like little lip that's around the whole hatch here. And as you can see, I mean, there's definitely quite a bit, but that's okay. It's just to seal everything up. It ain't gotta be perfect. And I really only used about maybe a quarter of a tube doing the whole hatch, so you don't need a whole lot. You can cut the tip pretty small, and you'll still have quite a bit of access when you're done. I caught myself a couple times smoothing it out. I'd wipe it on the other glove just to kind of keep the excess down, keep the trail kind of thin. But as you can see, this is basically what we're going for, just resealing this area. So like I said, when this is done and dry, I'll probably come back and do the second coat just to seal everything up, and then the inside of the hatch will be done. And then when the parts come in for it, I can bolt it back onto the car in preparation for paint. So looks like I'll be doing some work to the door. But yeah, so we'll get back to you once this is all dry and the second coat is on. All right, so here we are. Got the second coat on after the seam sealer is dried. So now we're gonna let this dry for probably about a day or two. And then the next thing we'll probably start doing is getting the trunk jam area all prepped and painted. Obviously we'll have to mask everything off. Like I'll tape off the doors and I'll tape off the hatch area and the tail light panel. And we'll get this whole area clean and prepped for paint. We'll do coats of paint on it. And then from there, what I'll do is I can bolt the hatch back onto the car. And yeah, that'll be like my preparation for paint. So we'll see how that turns out in the long run, but I think it'll work okay. So on to the next thing on the list here. Hatch still isn't on the car. I still have to sand the remaining body filler and stuff. I did get all the new parts for the hatch, new hinges, new struts, bumpers, stuff like that. So we'll be getting to that here soon, hopefully. But back to the headliner here. The headliner from this car was actually in pretty fair shape for being as old as it was. It wasn't sagging. It doesn't have any big tears in it. It does have 3 like super tiny tears. I think they're burn holes because the lady that did have this car before me was a smoker. Every ashtray in the car was full of cigarette butts. But nonetheless, it's still in great shape. So I'm going to try and save it. So what I'm doing here, I got it sitting on top of my garbage can here drying. I'm just going to let it air out and dry. I went through, I set it on. Actually, I'll just run you through the whole process of what I did here. So they put this like nasty sound deadener insulation, foamy, fabric-y stuff, and it, you know, breaks down over time and it turns into powder pretty much. And it was just everywhere. So I went through and just kind of scraped off the top of the headliner board with a wire brush to kind of clean it up, vacuumed it, whatever. Vacuumed the headliner and then set it on the creeper over there because I don't really have a free table right now. Got one of the watering spout bucket things, filled it with some water and some soap, and then went through, scrubbed it with like a brush on a drill. You want to get something that's like a fine or just not very aggressive because this fabric is old, you know, you don't really want to start digging in and tearing it. So I had to just be mindful of that and just kind of lightly graze the whole thing. And then once that was done and it was all nice and sudsy, I went through with the Bissell to extract and pull everything back out of it. So now I just have it air drying at the moment. So I'll probably let this dry over the next couple days and then we'll see what the overall condition is. Now, if it's, my biggest thing I'm worrying about is like the fabric delaminating from this board, right? And it doesn't really seem like it's doing that, which is awesome. If it does start, like you can see this corner here, it's a little delaminated, but it's not all the way. Like it's not just falling off the board. I have the Permatex all the way over there, the Permatex headliner adhesive, so I can spray that on there and wrap it back up and you'll never know. But if it does completely delaminate just from the water saturation, that'd be kind of doo-doo. But then I'll have to look into either redoing the headliner or purchasing a new one, which would suck because it's $300 and something. It's more expensive than carpet for the car. I mean, how does that work? But either way, like I said, we're going to trial this out and see how it goes. So if it works, great. If not, well, then you guys see what you shouldn't do with vintage OEM headliner. But yeah, I'll let you know how that goes. All right, so another thing I wanted to cover was the door jamb switches. Now, here's the old one from this side. As you can see, it's kind of beat up, a little nasty, bent. Seen better days. I already have that one pulled apart as well. It's just a 9/16 socket, and then it comes right out. The reason I'm removing these is, one, they're pretty beat up, and two, younger me wanted door speakers and drilled a hole right here. Now, this is obviously a water intrusion area, so we want to take care of that. I will be replacing the switches with new ones. You can get them on Late Monoresto and National Parts Depot. I think it's like $40 for the kit. Comes with the new switches and like little boots and stuff like that. But they're pretty easy to remove. Like I say, you just unscrew them, and then they have these like insulated connectors here. And surprisingly, this is still really soft and malleable, so I don't need to shrink wrap it or do anything like that. You just kind of roll that back, and then you'll see the connector. It's just 3 pins that just stick in there, and then you just pop it out, and boom, you can replace it. And there's also this, like, I think this used to be rubber at one point, but this one seems to be metal. But regardless, it's gonna replace it, don't matter. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna weld these holes shut. So I wanted to get this out of the way, so when we're in here welding, the wiring doesn't get melted or anything like that. So I got all this wiring that usually sits in this kick panel pulled out here. And then same thing with the other side, because I removed the ECU and everything. So there's nothing there I need to worry about besides like the dome light wiring that goes up there. And as you can see here, there's the dome light wiring resituated, but I actually had to put spray foam in there to fill that void because the original foam had deteriorated and basically just crumbled apart. So I pushed all that stuff out and then put spray foam in there just so that brace wasn't vibrating and whatnot, because it was very noisy. And yeah, we got that back together. So yeah, like I said, got the wiring out of the way. I'll loosely install these just so when we're in here welding, I don't fill that hole with any weld slag or anything like that. And then I got the same thing, put the other one back in, just hand tight, just to keep weld slag out of the threads. So like I said, we'll go in here, clean this up, weld it shut, and we'll get back to you when I got this one done. All right, so there she is, all welded up. As you see, there's a little bit of pitting there. I can go over it with some body filler if I really want to smooth it out that bad. Just depends how I'm feeling when we get to that point. But we have this hole welded shut, and we can replace these dome light switches. So it's a little thing, but it's something long term. It's something that ever since I did it, I regretted doing it. So I'm glad I was able to take care of it now. All right, so we're on the passenger side of the car here. Now you can see we gave this side the same treatment. And it's not perfect, but it'll definitely do the job. I'm just using a flux core welder here. But it's been working great for everything I've needed it to do. Like I did floor pan repairs with it, like you can see up here. I did my torque box and floor patch with it. Like, it's been solid, so I'll keep using it. But we got both sides done now, so it just needs to be cleaned up and painted, and then the switches will get replaced somewhere down the line here. So yeah, not like a huge thing, not something very important, but I feel a lot better seeing that repaired now. So pretty cool. All right, so here's a little update on the car since the last time you've seen it. So currently we're gonna be pulling the motor out and putting it on a stand over there so we can get the motor kind of resealed up, ready to go, give it a fresh paint job, and we're gonna start tackling the rust in the engine bay. Now, the headliner situation, that's to be determined at this time. Unfortunately, the headliner did kind of start delaminating in some spots, so I'll have to figure out something for that down the road. But on the upside, we did get the hatchback on the car, and it's a little dusty now. It's been sitting, but it actually didn't turn out too bad for just getting the jam painted. Let's see if it'll do it. Maybe not. Yeah. There she goes. So, minty. We got fresh parts. You can see we got fresh carpet here from ACC, and then we got some new gaskets and stuff for the motor. Still got more parts to accumulate and whatnot, but yeah, the jam looks good. Like I said, it's a little dusty, but there's nothing stuck to the paint, which is awesome. But yeah, the jam looks good. Got the new lift struts, the new mounting plates with Allen fasteners instead of Phillips because I thought it looked just a little bit nicer. Our new hatch hinges, which come in silver instead of black, which is whatever, but it is what it is. We also got the new rubber bump stops and whatnot, along with the undercoated hatch. So things are looking pretty good here. I'm really digging it. But yeah, we got the hatch wiring all redone. So you got it tucked up, got it fir tree clipped into the inside of the corridor, really nice and neat. I did leave these two wires here. I don't know what the red wire does, but I know the purple wire is power for the latch. I'm not planning on using that, but in the event I change my mind and decide to hook it up, it's there ready to go. So don't have to do too much dissecting for anything like that. But the other new thing, you can see we got quick glitter primer on those, but the car decided to claim its third heater core, so we are going to have to pull the dash to swap that out, and from there I'll do the little stuff I wanted to do, such as one, changing the heater core, and two, shortening the evaporator core lines that are plugged so they sit a little more flush in the firewall. Probably shorten these studs where the box pokes through, just so it's a nice clean look. And yeah, so we got a lot going on, but the big thing here is I got invited to go to Ponies in the Smokies down in Tennessee. Never been. I've always wanted to go. And basically what that means is I have 2 months to get this car ready. So that's why we're on full go mode for getting everything done. So right now, the reason I'm pulling the motor now is because I already know this is going to be most of my work right here, is getting the motor resealed up, ready to go, and getting all the rust on the strut towers and the frame rails fixed. So from there, everything should go really nice and smooth, and then we'll mask everything off and continue on. So yeah, that's the plan. So I'm going to be trying to crank this thing out as quick as I can, trying to get as much content as I can for you guys. So I appreciate you guys for sticking around and tuning in this far. But it's going to get pretty hectic here. As you can see, I'm running out of space in the garage. So I'll probably end this video with this video, and then in the next one, we'll get more into what the plan is for the motor, how we're going to attack the rust in the engine bay, and continue onward. So stay tuned in the future for that, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.